I first encountered this thing when I visited a park in kindergarten for a picnic. It was just us kids and the teachers there, and after lunch I went to the toilets. There, I saw it. The moment I saw it, I was confused. It was my mother, who most definitely wasn't at the picnic. Yet there was something different about her. Nervously, I looked at her again. Why on earth did I think this thing with a dark face was my mother? Silently, the thing reached out for me. I was so scared that I ran away. 5 years later, I had forgotten all about what happened, but then I ran into it again. It was at a training camp for school, and it looked exactly the same. After that, I saw it again when I was on my junior high and high school field trips, and it appeared rather regularly once I was in high school too. Strangely, however, it stopped appearing after I graduated. It wasn't like things were bad at home, and my parents got along just fine as well. My mother is perfectly healthy and still alive, and she's not the type of person people would hold a grudge against either. Looking back on it now, I wonder if that thing was trying to spirit me away. Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. In case you missed it, Toshiden Exploring Japanese Urban Legends Volume 4 is now available. Once again, there are a host of new legends to explore, both horrifying, bizarre, and otherwise. And of course, a new season of the podcast that has just wrapped up. So, if you haven't checked it out yet, it's available right now. You can also find the audiobook for the first volume of Toshiden, either on our Patreon, Fourth Wall Store, or various audiobook outlets, including Spotify and Audible, so don't miss out on that either if you're still looking for more. This week, we're looking at some tales of absolutely bizarre and horrifying hauntings. These aren't your usual ghosts, but what happened to them, and is there something they still want? First up, a group of friends go for a drive to celebrate moving house, but on the way, they hear something drop on their car. Has something else joined them on their trip? Find out in Hair. This happened 9 years ago now. I went fishing with my close friend from junior high, A, his girlfriend, B, and my girlfriend, C. I didn't have a car at the time, so we all went in A's car, a white Pajero. On this particular day, A and B were moving in together, and we were done moving all their stuff by 8 p.m. To thank us for our help, they took us to a family restaurant for dinner. Then we went back to their place, got ready, and left around 1 a.m. In the car, we listened to a tape I bought from next to the register in the restaurant, titled Scary Stories, Mount Fuji's 5 Lakes. And by 3 a.m., we reached the road going around the first of Mount Fuji's 5 lakes. To our right was the guardrail, and beyond that, the cliff leading down to the lake. To our left, the mountain loomed with a wire mesh barrier on it to prevent rock slides. Just as we were about to enter the tunnel, there was a loud bang on top of the car. We couldn't exactly pull over inside the tunnel, so once we were out, we pulled over to check. But after checking both the roof and the bonnet, there were no signs that anything had hit the car. I turned to look at the cliff to our left, and a white mist seemed to be forming on it. Huh? I thought, and B turned to look at me as well, her face pale. Seemed she had seen the same thing. Dawn was approaching, and it was getting lighter, so we brushed it off as some morning mist and continued towards the lake. Once we got there and the boat shop opened at dawn, we set out and enjoyed some fishing. However, having worked hard the day before, and having been up all night, we found ourselves getting sleepy as the boat gently rocked in the water. we decided to head back to the car for a quick nap, so we briefly returned the boat, and then all four of us started walking back towards the car. B was the first person to scream. We had no idea what was going on, but B covered her face with her hands and shook with fear. "B, what's wrong?" A asked. On the car," she said, her voice trembling as she continued hiding her face. I stepped on the car step to check the roof. It was covered in long strands of hair all over. "Ah!" As embarrassing as it was, I screamed. Neither A nor C knew what was going on. However, because the car was parked on a slope, you could still see the roof from the ground. And when they realized what was there, they both reacted in their own ways. The hair appeared to have been wet when it was put on the roof, and as the sun rose in the sky, it dried, sticking to it. B was still panicking, so we left her in C's care, while A and I tried to peel the hair off and put it in plastic bags we got from the convenience store. As you might expect, we didn't exactly have the energy to keep fishing or hanging out after that, so we went straight home. Although I wasn't exactly thrilled to be going home in that same car. The entire drive back was silent. Well, we did sleep for much of it as well. The next evening, I got a call from A. "B's acting strangely," he said. Although they had gotten everything ready to start living together, B returned to her parents' house after that, and then A later got a call from her mother. "Seems she's not feeling well. She's wrapped up in bed and keeps muttering about something. She's acting weird," she said. It appeared that the previous day's events had really gotten to her. I told A about the white mist B and I saw, and how there was nothing on the roof after we heard that noise. We also discussed what that hair could have possibly been, and then A said he was going to visit B's house, and hung up. Suddenly, I was worried about C as well, so I called her right away. She was her usual self. "I'm tired. My sunburn hurts. I'm scared I'm going to get blotches." Well, she didn't seem to be ill, so I was relieved. The next day, I called A's house to see how B was doing. His mother answered. "He had an accident after he left last night. He's currently in the hospital," she said. Seemed it had happened right after we spoke on the phone. I asked which hospital he was in and rushed over with C to see him. When we entered his room, the first thing we saw was A sitting up reading some comics, bandages around his head and his leg in a cast. "Hey, are you okay?" I asked. "Yeah, I had an accident," he said. When I asked him what happened, he said that after we spoke, he crashed his car on the way to see B, as I suspected. "The car's absolutely totaled," he said with a laugh. Well, it was kinda creeping me out, so maybe it's for the best. "What even happened?" I asked. A loved driving and was quite good at it too. "I don't really remember. It was like the steering wheel suddenly stopped working as I was going around a corner, and then next thing I knew, the brakes weren't working either. I grabbed the handbrake, but then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the hospital." His parents later heard from the police that a witness saw him hit the median strip, and then the car rolled. Luckily, it was so late at night that there weren't many cars around, so nobody else was injured. "So, how is B-chan doing?" I asked. "Well, I've been here, like this, so I haven't been able to contact her yet." "Alright, I'll go call her instead," C said. She got B-chan's home phone number from A and then made her way towards a nearby payphone. A few minutes later, she returned. "B-chan said she's coming over now." She was surprised. "So she's feeling better then?" "After what happened, I was worried that maybe a ghost had possessed her or something," A said with a laugh. But it was a stiff one. When B-chan arrived, she told us that she didn't remember anything from when she was laid up in bed. When she woke up that morning, she just realized that she'd slept an entire day away. After that, we all said goodbye and went our separate ways. But that night, I got a call from A in the hospital. I didn't say anything today because C-chan was there, but right before my accident, I saw a white hand grab my steering wheel. Honestly, I'm glad that car was totaled. I don't think I would have been quite so lucky the next time. I really have no idea what the hell that hair could have been though. A and B ended up getting married, and our friendship remained strong as well. But after that day, none of us ever spoke about the weird incident with the hair again. A few years after it happened, A, B, and I went to a family restaurant to eat. I had already broken up with C by then. And B said something interesting to me when A got up to go to the toilet. "Look, to tell you the truth, I felt something outside watching me the entire day back then. It was outside my window the whole time. I was terrified, so I couldn't get out of bed. But it would just worry A if I told him, so I never said anything." Sorry for such a long, rambling story. I rarely see ghosts or have experiences like this, so it was honestly a terrifying event for me. The man in this next story encounters something weird when leaving the library one night. It appears to be a person walking backwards. But is it really a person? And what do they really want? Find out in Backwards Facing Person. This happened to me just recently. I was studying for my certification exam in the library, and as I was getting ready to leave around 7:30 p.m, I saw something. Something I shouldn't have. The library was about 10 minutes from the station, but the area was mostly empty lots with few people around. And because the library also served as a record office, the building itself was kind of old-fashioned and traditional, so at night it was kinda creepy. There were few streetlights outside until you reached the main road, so I generally followed the dimly lit railway tracks until I reached the station. Now, usually there were 5 or so students studying in the library's study room until it closed, but on this day, there was just one person other than me. The last person to leave has to turn the lights off in the study room, so I decided to wrap up a little early. But then, as I was getting ready to go, I realized that the other person in the room had already left. But as I turned the lights off so I could go, I sensed somebody was still in the room, so I quickly turned them on again. Yet, nobody was there. A little scared, I turned the lights off again and rushed downstairs towards the exit. Upon reaching the bottom, I could have sworn I heard a click, like the lights turning back on in the second floor study room. Thinking it must have been a staff member doing the rounds, I thought little of it and went outside. It was already dark, and because there was nobody else at the library, the surroundings were empty. Thinking I might have a cigarette in the outside smoking area before I returned, I made my way over to the ashtrays. But there, I ran into something rather unpleasant. Looking back on it now, I wonder if all the horrible things that happened after were because I ran into that. As I made my way over to the smoking area, I looked down to take my cigarettes out of my bag. And when I looked back up, I saw someone emerge from the path next to the smoking area. Now, that alone isn't really a problem, but the way this figure was moving was quite odd. It was like they were swaying or staggering. There were no lights, so it was hard to tell. They also appeared to have a ball or something with them, or maybe they were kicking a stone. Now, at the time, I thought this was a person, so I wasn't exactly scared. But as I took out my lighter to light my cigarette, a chill ran down my spine. This person or figure was walking backwards. As I just mentioned, this was a small path, and it was rather curvy too. There were no lights, so the entire area was dark. And yet, this person was slowly swaying as they walked backwards towards me. Despite the fact I was about to have a cigarette, of course I was suddenly rather scared, so I took off running through the parking lot and made my way towards the station as fast as I could. I tried to understand what on earth I'd just seen, but I was so panicked that nothing made sense. And so I just kept going. As I walked alongside the dimly lit railway tracks, I finally started to calm down. However, almost immediately, another chill ran down my spine. As soon as the crossing up ahead started to ring, I saw a person standing in the red light on the other side. Like before, they were standing with their back to me. My brain immediately started coming up with all sorts of explanations. They were just looking the other way until the train passed. Someone was coming up behind them, so they turned around, etc. I tried to calm my nerves, but the kang kang of the crossing made it impossible to calm down. Then, even though the barriers were down, and even though they were facing the other way, this figure slowly started moving onto the tracks. At that exact moment, I heard a woman scream. I hadn't even noticed, but there was a woman standing on the same side of the barriers as me, and she was screaming at the person facing backwards who was coming towards us. However, that figure didn't stop moving, and, in a panic, the woman ran out to try to stop them. All I could do was watch. The train was coming. Would they be okay? Oh, this is bad. Hey, hurry up. No. That person facing the other way wasn't a person at all. And that was the last thought I remember having that night. The next day, I saw that a woman had jumped in front of a train. It was in the newspaper, and I was, for some reason, hospitalized in the psychosomatic unit. The police came to see me to ask some questions, and my parents were also worried about me, but I was unable to explain what had happened. A few days later, after I'd been discharged, I went back for a checkup, and the doctor, calling himself a counselor, said, "That's probably just what you think happened. There was no such person there. The police also confirmed nobody else was there." Did I simply lose my mind from the shock of seeing someone die in front of me? Did my mind make it all up after the fact? I was so confused that I began to panic even more. But then, something happened that made me certain that I really had seen what I thought. A friend told me a story about how the ghost of that woman who died at the crossing had been seen by various people. It seemed she was unable to move on, and numerous students had seen her. They claimed she was walking backwards and swaying side to side, as though looking for something. But when I heard that, I was sure I was the only one who knew the truth. It wasn't the ghost of the woman they had seen, but rather the thing that killed her. Sorry this story was so long. Maybe I really did just imagine everything because of the shock, but I'm positive that isn't it, which is why I'm writing this here today. Thank you for reading. After watching a scary movie, a young man has a strange dream. But is it really a dream? And why does he keep seeing this ghost, if it really is a ghost, when he closes his eyes? Find out in Slow Motion Woman. Maybe this isn't that scary, but this is something that happened to me not that long ago. When it's time to go to bed, I make sure to turn off all the lights. If even the tiniest light is left on, it makes me restless, so I have to turn everything off. I absolutely despise the dark, so it really sucks if I wake up during the night, you know? If that does happen, then I just pull the blankets up over my head and wait for sleep to claim me again. One night, I made perhaps not the smartest decision and rented Ju-on and watched it alone before bed. And that night, I woke up. At first, I was so groggy that I didn't even realize I was awake. I was lying on my back, staring at the dirty ceiling above me. But bit by bit, I found myself waking up. And before long, terror gripped me. I was so scared that I couldn't even move. Couldn't even close my eyes. I felt like if I moved, then something would come for or find me. My heart pounded, and inside my head, a voice kept screaming, "Crap, crap, crap." I don't know how long I stared at the ceiling like that, but suddenly I felt at ease and was able to close my eyes again. Relieved, I tried to go back to sleep. But then I realized something strange. My eyes were closed, yet it wasn't dark. I could still see my room. As your eyes get used to the dark, you can somewhat see things, right? It was just like that. But my eyes were most definitely shut. I tried moving my eyes and I could feel my closed eyelids. But I could see the room. A chill ran through me. A woman was there. I don't know when she got there, but there was a woman standing in the darkness of my room. I clearly remember her long, smooth hair, but her clothes and such weren't very distinct. I also saw her face. She wasn't scary like Sadako or Kayoko, but rather a normal woman. She had a rather troubled look on her face, and she was moving really, really slowly, like it was taking her half a minute to make the smallest of movements as she looked around the room. As her neck turned to the side, her beautiful long hair fell from her shoulders and draped over her chest. The movement speed of her hair was the only normal thing. And over, this repeated. As I watched her move in slow motion, I broke out in goosebumps. I couldn't stop thinking about how I was seeing something that I shouldn't be. But even if I wanted to stop looking at it, like, my eyes were already closed. And if I moved my neck, then she'd probably find me. As I lay there, frozen, the woman turned to look at me. Our eyes met. She smiled and looked a little embarrassed, like, "Oh no, what should I do?" And next thing I knew, it was morning. For a while, I simply trembled in terror. But it was such a cliche turn of events for a story like that I told myself I must have been having a bad dream because Juong scared me so much. I told myself to forget about it, and by the time I left for school, I was totally fine. It was a 10-minute walk from my house to the station. On the way, for some reason, there was a dead mouse on the road. It wasn't white like a pet, but rather a small, plain brown one. That's weird, I thought as I walked past it. But by the time I went home that evening, it was gone. I've seen that slow-motion woman another 5 times since then. When I'm tired or sleepy and close my eyes, like on the train, very occasionally, I'll see her through my eyelids. At first, I didn't realize that I even was seeing anything. When I started to think things were a little weird, then I spotted her. Each and every time, she slowly turned her head to look around. Her soft hair and the troubled look on her face were the same as well. She stood amongst the other people, never looking out of place. But for some reason, I could never make out what she was wearing. Eventually, our eyes would meet, and then as I opened my eyes in surprise, she would be gone. These days, I'm not so afraid when our eyes do finally meet. But when she looks at me with that troubled smile, the sight immediately fills me with terror, and I have to open my eyes. One time, I jumped up while on the train after opening my eyes, and my friend who was with me was a little weirded out. I wonder what might have happened if I didn't open my eyes. Every time I've seen that woman, it has been in a different location, but for some reason, these locations seem to be getting further and further away from my house. And it might be a coincidence, but whenever I see her, I always find a dead animal shortly thereafter. Like, when I saw her on the train, as soon as I got off at the station, I found a dead pigeon. First was a mouse, then a pigeon, rabbit, crow, and cat. They were gradually getting bigger, but after seeing a dog, they suddenly stopped. I also haven't seen the woman since then either. I saw that woman around once a month. When I told that friend who was on the train with me about it, he said it was probably because I watched Ju-on. I wonder if there's something up with that movie. A part-timer at a karaoke joint has a strange night when a family keeps complaining of a child running around outside. But they're the only people on that floor. What's really up there with them? Find out in Kid in the Ceiling. This happened when I was working part-time at a 5-story karaoke building. When the 3rd floor was full of customers, then we would open the 4th floor. When the 4th floor was full, then we'd open the 5th. This was always how we ran it. However, if we used even one room on a floor, then the entire floor had to be cleaned. As such, even if the 3rd floor was full, if it looked like a room might open soon, we'd tell customers that we were currently full, and if they waited just a few minutes, then... But, of course, if there were 2 or more groups waiting, then we'd just open the 4th floor right away. One day, despite it being a weekday, even the 4th floor was full. It didn't look like any of the customers were going to be leaving soon, so we had to then open the 5th floor. Having said that, the only guests there were a family of 4, 2 parents and 2 kids. About an hour after I'd shown them to their room, we got a complaint from that family. It seemed there was a child running around on the 5th floor. The store manager apologized to them over the intercom and then said he would deal with it. He checked the rooms and how many people were in them, but that family were the only people currently using the 5th floor, and there were no young kids on any of the other floors either. "Did any kids even come in today?" I said. "No, doesn't look like it," the manager replied. I did a quick check of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors, but I couldn't find any children. "Looks like there really aren't any here," I told the manager. And then the intercom rang again. It was from that same family. They claimed the child was getting even louder and running around. This was becoming a bit of a hassle, so we decided to offer them some free drinks. "We're terribly sorry. Please take these drinks. They're on the house," I said, handing them over. When I returned to the 1st floor, the manager said, "Stay here, would you? I'm gonna check upstairs." And then he rushed away. No way. He's going to the 5th floor? I thought, amused. And then we got another call from that same family room. But this time, it was the manager. "N, can you bring a stepladder and a torch?" he asked. Intrigued, I took them up. When I got there, the manager and father were talking, and the usually locked door to the area above the ceiling was open. The cover or whatever was hanging open, and bits of dust were falling everywhere. "It's so dirty," I thought with a small laugh. "N, hold the ladder, would you?" the manager said, and then he stuck his head in the hole and looked around. "Looks like the lock broke. I'm terribly sorry," he said apologetically. "But with some kid running around and now the door in the ceiling being open, this family sure were having a rough time. There was no way we could charge them after all this," I thought. "Which room is that child from, I wonder? Surely their parents must be worried," said the mother while holding her own 2 children. I thought she was going to complain about the ceiling, so my response was a little delayed. Maybe the 3rd floor," I lied. "I wonder how they got up there. Is it really that easy?" she asked. "Well, there are stairs in addition to the elevator, so perhaps they used the stairs," I replied. After a pause, the father then turned to me. "We were singing, and then suddenly there was this loud bang. That cover in the ceiling flung open, and the 4 of us jumped in surprise. When we looked up, some child was looking down at us," he said. A real, genuine chill ran down my spine. Like, the manager should have told me that before I got there. I wanted nothing more than to run back downstairs. "We were so shocked that we just stared at each other, unable to speak," the mother said. "I was about to tell the kid it's dangerous up there, but then they disappeared," the father said, and the children cried in agreement about how scary it was. Although, looking back on it now, maybe I was the one crying about how scary it was. "I'm terribly sorry. We'll find you another room right away," the manager said. He then told me to show them to a new room on the 3rd or 4th floor. I showed them to a new room, leaving all their drinks and such behind. "You don't have to worry about any charges. We'll cover everything for you," I said, and provided them with some new drinks. They were happy with this unexpected turn of events, but me, well, I was shaken. When I returned to the room on the 5th floor to tell the manager I'd done what he asked, he was laughing about how creepy it all was. I couldn't help but agree. "Man, I told them the lock was broken, but it actually wasn't," he then said with another laugh. I might have wet myself a little when he said that. Apparently, he just lied about it so they wouldn't ask any further questions, and when he stuck his head in, he didn't really want to see what might be up there. At any rate, we closed the cover, locked it, cleaned the room, then returned to the front desk. But you want to know what really freaked me out? Our store's rule. If even one room is used, then you have to clean the entire floor. Closing up the store alone would mean it would be nearly 3 a.m. by the time you were done. The manager looked at me as though he wanted to say something. I left at midnight. When I got back to work the next day, everyone was talking about what happened. It seemed that cover in the ceiling had opened again when someone went up to clean the 5th floor. We then contacted the head office to send a specialist out to fix it, and we kept the 5th floor closed for a while after that. And finally this week, 2 students are unfortunate witnesses to a horrific traffic accident that not only leaves a lasting impression on them, but may have also literally followed them home. Find out why in Thing Stuck to the Pole. This happened when I was in high school. I was walking home with a friend when we suddenly heard screeching, followed by a bang. Turning around, we saw a bike and a car had collided. The scene was so horrific that we both threw up. It was honestly terrible. The bike was pinned between the car and a pole, and the rider was half lying on the bonnet. Because he wasn't wearing a full helmet, his head had hit the pole before bouncing off it, leaving half his face a bloody mess. And because we both turned around the moment we heard the sound, he was still twitching. Seeing the state he was in, my friend threw up again. A few seconds later, the rider tried to sit up, his entire body shaking, and a horrid groan escaped his lips. The driver of the car immediately got out to check on him before calling an ambulance. He kept calling out to the rider, but after a few minutes, he stopped moving. The ambulance arrived and took him away while the police started looking for witnesses to question. We just happened to be there when it happened, so they asked us various things. Of course, we only saw what happened after the fact, so we told them that we only heard it and didn't see it. They then let us go home. That accident was on the local news that night, and I heard that the rider was later confirmed dead at the hospital. My friend didn't come to school the next day. The accident affected him so badly that he continued throwing up, and apparently his parents took him to the hospital because he was nearly having a mental breakdown. I took the same road home, and when I passed that pole, there were flowers, beer cans, and cigarette packets beneath it. However, when I glanced at the pole itself, I saw what looked like a dark stain around chest height. I jumped. For just a second, it almost looked like half a face. Looking closely, it was clearly just a stain. But when I looked away, and then back again, for just a moment, it really did look like a face. Considering what had happened the day before, I was creeped out, so I put my hands together in prayer and then rushed home. A few days later, rumors started to spread. Hey, did you hear? If you visit that pole at night, you can hear someone groaning in pain. Apparently, an old guy who was walking at dawn saw a ghost standing there, and its face was all messed up. My friend and I thought it was stupid, and because we had seen it with our very own eyes, which alone terrified us, we didn't really engage with the rumors. A few days after that, a classmate came to talk to me and my friend. Hey, A-senpai sent me to get you. A-senpai was one of the delinquent kids at school. Nervous, we went to see him and he asked us to tell him everything we saw. So, we did. We told him that, other than hearing the sound, we didn't actually see anything. Hearing that, he said he was going to do a test of courage there, and we should join him. I'd never spoken to A before, and I had no idea how he knew that we were at the scene of the accident, but I was honestly kinda irritated, so I told him I absolutely wasn't going, and then left. Around 8 p.m. that night, A called me. "Hey, I got your number from your classmate. I'm with your friend right now, so you better come over here right now too," he said before I could even get a word in. "Nah, it's late. I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Do you want me to mess you up at school? You want us to bully you? Or should I just beat up your friend instead?" he said, threatening me. Of course, this pissed me off. "Hoi, get over yourself, idiot. I'll mess you up, seriously," I said. I really did think that, if it came to a fight, I wouldn't lose. Then I heard a high-pitched sound coming through the receiver and another voice said, "Help me." Thinking he'd hit my friend, I said, "Hey, I'm coming. Where are you?" "I don't want to die. It hurts. My face hurts." A voice screamed. "What's going on?" I said. This was all too weird. "I said I'm coming, so where should I go?" I asked more politely. "Where you saw it happen. You saw it, right? You didn't help while he was dying, did you?" A said, laughing. "If you're not gonna come here, then I'll go to you." Then the phone hung up. I called the friend who no doubt gave A my number right away. "What's up?" "Huh? A called you?" "I don't know anything about that. I'm at home," he said. When I told him about the phone call I'd just received, he said it was probably just a joke. 30 minutes later, my friend called me. He sounded panicked. "A's outside my house," he said. But apparently, A was acting weird. He was standing under the telephone pole outside, and he called my friend to tell him to look outside. When he did, he saw A grinning at him. "Come outside," he said. My friend had no experience with fights, so he was too scared to go out, but he didn't want to tell his parents either. I told him to wait as I was on my way over. I got on my bike and started riding towards his house. On the way, I got another call from my friend. "Looks like A's gone," he said. "But I'm on my way." "Well, you might as well come over. I'll put out some snacks for you." When I got there, I ate a few snacks and, as I was getting ready to leave, I saw a figure standing by the pole outside. Of course, I was so scared that I screamed before I could stop myself. The figure was clinging to the pole, as if wrapped around it, and rubbing half their face against it. Under the lights, I could see the other half of their face was grinning. I ran back inside, told my friend's parents what was going on, and we immediately called the police. By the time they arrived, the figure outside was gone, and I ended up staying the night at my friend's house for my own safety. When I got to school the next day, I heard from that classmate, who gave A my number, that A had an accident and was in the hospital. Apparently, A and some friends went to the scene of that accident and wanted to scare us somehow. But while A was on the phone to me, suddenly a bike hit the telephone pole. But strangely, while A called my friend's house, that would mean he didn't actually go there. So we still don't know who it was outside. It wasn't like I directly saw A hugging the pole outside either. It could have been someone playing a prank. Or maybe A was just skipping school for the day and that was it. A few weeks later, A was discharged and returned to school. As soon as I saw his face, it was clear that nobody was lying about him being in the hospital. The left side of his face was messed up and it looked like he'd had skin grafts. I still don't know what I saw in front of my friend's house, but it was so scary that my friend and I bought some flowers and placed them there as an offering just in case. Even now, that dark stain is still on that pole, and there are frequent accidents on that road as well. However, neither my friend nor I have experienced anything strange since then. A huge thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Scarly, Emerald, and Kenneth Kawamoto. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Toshiden, Exploring Japanese Urban Legends Volume 4, out right now. And check out our merchandise store at kowabana-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys, stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.